Hi, everyone. Today is November 17th, 2018, and I wanted to make a little blog or video, podcast thing about the SEC's statements today. So they came out guns a-blazing, but something to keep in mind here, like first and foremost, the press release that they put out had a disclaimer on it that said, this statement is not a rule, regulation. It's not a statement of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Basically, they also said the SEC has neither approved nor disapproved of the content. So essentially, until someone takes on this epic court battle, no true regulations are actually promulgated by the SEC's press releases. However, with the growing number of companies that have just, rolled over and agreed with the cease and desist orders, it's likely that it's going to create some kind of David and Goliath situation when it does eventually go to court, because it looks reasonable that every company, why would no one fight them if they weren't right, kind of thing will be, I think, how it looks in court. And we haven't had a full court fight yet, but there have been a few companies that in court have declined to actually fight it. So there are some rulings built up that these ICOs are securities. But in a short summary of what the notice said today, so first of all, any ICO that was issued after the SEC put out their notice after the Dow, so that date was July 25th, 2017, if they don't meet the Howey Test, the SEC wants them to register now and offer investors a claim form to refund their investment should the investor choose that they want the refund. And after becoming more educated on the investment, the SEC thinks that the investor will have a more informed choice after the company's registered. They'll read the disclosure statements and decide, maybe I want to keep this, or maybe I don't. But the investor should have that option. The second focus on it was that hedge funds investing in any ICO securities, they should also have been registered as investment companies. And exchanges are never going to be considered decentralized, so they should just go ahead now and register as National Securities Exchanges or alternative trading systems. So on the ICO side, regardless of how the securities were issued, the SEC says our same old securities laws apply. So it doesn't matter that we're on the blockchain. Today they issued orders to companies called AirFox and Paragon, and both of them got cease and desist orders to stop violating the securities laws, and they got asked basically to register with the SEC. They each got fined $250,000, and they each got ordered to give investors an opportunity for a refund by publishing this claim form. And both companies went down without a fight. They just said, sure thing, SEC, we will do what you say. So the SEC also said that their registration is designed to ensure that investors receive the type of information they would have received had the issuers complied with the registration provisions of the Securities Act of 33 prior to the offer and sale of tokens in their respective ICOs. Now, that's all well and good on paper, but I have purchased many stocks and mutual funds and sold many of them to investment advisors and accredited investors in the course of my previous career, and I have never once read a disclosure statement, and I'm pretty sure most of the people that I sold stuff to also didn't read these disclosure statements. So for the SEC to say that that's the main thing that's wrong with the ICO market is that investors haven't been given a disclosure statement that they likely wouldn't read anyway, is kind of doesn't mean a lot to me, or it's just a bureaucracy kind of. That disclosure statement doesn't protect anyone. It lets you know of the risk if you read it. Anyway, just something of note. So what happened with these two companies, like AirFox, they raised $15 million from over 2,500 investors, both, and then Paragon, they both were issuing their ICOs between August and October 2017. So AirFox's ICO involved prepaid mobile phone airtime, interacting with ads. So I guess you would get tokens if you watched advertisements. Peer-to-peer lending, credit scoring, and use of the tokens to buy and sell services other than mobile data. Tall order, peer-to-peer lending with mobile phone company. Anyway, they assured investors high returns. They promised they would get listed on exchanges. They ran a very robust promotional bounty program that had over 400 people shilling their ICO, that like in exchange for tokens. They aimed their efforts at known ICO investors rather than at people that might have used the Air token for credit scoring the other prepaid mobile phone users. It just seems like a silly project. Paragon Coin, so their mission was to, and this is a direct quote, to deploy a suite of blockchain-enabled products to organize, systematize, and bring verification and stability to the cannabis industry. They did use some celebrity promoters, Miss Iowa, Jessica Versteeg, and also Compton Raptor, the game rapper, not Raptor, Compton Rapper, the game. So they raised $12 million from 8,323 investors in the same time frame, like that August to October 2017. And one thing I want to mention about August to October 2017, that was before Munchie. That was before the February statements from Jay Clayton stating that everything was a security. So I think it's kind of harsh going back to these people because all we had at that time to go off of was the DAO notice. And the DAO notice did say that the DAO tokens were securities. So yeah, it did. But with everything that was going on at that time, all the different companies around the world that were in this ICO craze, I think it's a little bit remiss to treat them with the lens of everything we know today, because at that time, really all they knew was the DAO notice and no one was listening to that notice. And then came the Munchie action, then came that was in December that the Munchie action came out. That was like the first cease and desist. And then it wasn't until February, again after that, that we heard from Jay Clayton and Giancarlo at the Senate hearings. I think it was February 6th, where that's where Jay Clayton said all ICOs were securities. And after that, it was, more of a game on. It was clear what their thought pattern on it was. But after the DAO, all they said was that the DAO tokens were securities, and they used the Howey Test. But it's just something to keep in mind for these companies. They didn't have all the information that we have today. So the legal analysis that went into the orders against them, basically they're saying under Section 2A1 of the Securities Act, a security includes an investment contract. An investment contract is an investment of money in a common enterprise with a reasonable expectation of profits to be derived from the entrepreneurial and managerial efforts of others. And that comes from the Howey Test, but it's been used in over 1,500 other cases between 1946 and today. So pretty much anything that you think might remotely fall under that definition, it does. Like there's some case out there that says, yep, that's included too. They say that the touchstone of an investment contract is the presence of an investment in a common venture premised on a reasonable expectation of profit to be derived from the entrepreneurial efforts or managerial efforts of others, and that it's a flexible rather than static principle, and it's capable of adaptation to meet the countless and variable schemes devised by those who seek the use of money of others on the promise of profits. So anyone that's like trying to get your money to make their company grow your money for you, that's a security under this test. The test also permits the fulfillment of statutory purpose, compelling full and fair disclosure relative to the issuance of the many types of instruments that our commercial world fall within ordinary concept of the security. So they're just saying lots of different things are securities. And in analyzing whether something is a security, form should be disregarded for substance. So that's basically saying that whole thing, you know, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Like, you know, if it's remotely looks like a security, which these, you know, right from the get-go, these tokens kind of looked like securities. It kind of looked like an alternative, you know, unregulated stock market that we have going. And everyone was up in arms like, oh, how could they say that? But it's, you know, if it looks like a security, it's a security, and that's what the SEC is basically saying here. The emphasis should be on the economic realities of a transaction and not on the name appended thereto. So that was from the Foreman case, but it had nothing to do with crypto, but it basically is saying like calling something a utility token doesn't make it not a security, because we're going to look at the underlying nature of what is happening here. And if people are expecting an increase in value because of some other company's work, then that's what an investment contract is. So what they did to these two companies, they said, they called it undertakings, but within 14 days of this November 16th order, both companies have to issue a press release and publish it on their website and provide a link to a claim form, and that claim form allows investors to get refunded. And I need to look into it more. I read the claim fund. I can't tell if they're going to get what exactly the refund's going to be for. Like if the company only has half of its money left, how are they supposed to refund the whole value? And the fact that Ethereum do they refund the units of Ethereum that were purchased? So there's a lot there that I just didn't have time tonight to look up and go through, and I kind of ran out of steam, but hopefully that information will be displayed, you know, on Twitter, and I'll retweet it or something. But yeah, they get some kind of refund. Within 90 days of this November 16th order, both companies have to file Form 10 under the Section 12 of the 1934 Act and publish the link on their website. So they have to register with the SEC. No later than 60 days after they register with the SEC, they have to send electronic notification of the claim form to every single investor who participated in the ICO, and they have 3 months to submit that claim. That is going to probably pose a challenge, considering I don't think you have to give your, I think a lot of these didn't collect email addresses. Some of them probably did, but a lot, I don't know how they're going to electronically notify every single investor here. But I guess they can just, you know, notice in some cases, like notices served if you try to reach the person and you can't, and then you publish it in a newspaper. That's considered notice sometimes. So maybe just publishing on their website will have to suffice as notice in this case. They also have to then maintain all their filings with the 1934 Act. So every quarterly report required by the Securities Exchange Act and registration will be necessary. So that's going to be interesting for like getting audited and paying their taxes and, you know, doing everything that a good public company does. And they've got to pay the amount due under 12A to any person or entity that purchased the tokens before October 5th. So again, whatever that 12A rule says, like how much they have to pay back, I really should have looked that up. So I'm sorry I don't have that info. But anyway, then they have to submit to the SEC a monthly report of the claim received and the amount that they actually paid out. and they have to cease and desist from committing any further and future violations of the Security Act. And they have to pay $250,000 as a fine to the SEC. And the SEC said, I feel like they were very proud in saying this, but they said, these two matters demonstrate that there is a path to compliance with the federal securities laws going forward, even where issuers have conducted an illegal, unregistered offering of digital asset securities. So that's the path forward. That's not a practical path at all, like, refund and register. But I guess anyone wondering what to do with their ICO now has pretty clear guidance. This is what you have to do. And I hope I get someone call me that says, hey, we did an ICO and want to follow this, because I think it'll be fun to kind of walk through that process of actually registering and dealing with all those refunds, like just to see how many people will actually go on the website, fill out the claim, and then you have to send it to the SEC every month. So it's a lot of legal work, and that would be great for someone in my position to do that kind of work. But we'll see. I think we'll see how many people actually like take note of that and want to proceed with that process, because refunding the money doesn't seem like a desirable outcome for most ICO issuers. Then the next part of this notice really focused on the investment vehicles investing in digital asset securities. So investment vehicles they're talking about the 1940s Investment Company Act that looks at a regulatory framework for when pooled investment vehicles need to register. And here they issued an order in September 11th, actually, to Crypto Asset Management, showing that a hedge fund manager, he failed to register as an investment company, and he invested more than 40% of the fund's assets into ICOs. They said he acted as an investment advisor, and he violated the anti-fraud provisions of the Investment Advisor Act by making misleading statements to investors in the fund. Then they look at the trading of digital asset securities, and we already saw the notice from them on the Ether Delta exchange just on Friday, so not even a whole week ago. And the statement essentially said that exchanges offering tokens that were issued with an ICO after they published their DAO notice. So any exchanges listing these ICO tokens that post July that did their ICO after the notice, they have to register as a National Securities Exchange or broker dealer. And they gave some pretty clear thoughts about decentralization. They explained this sentiment in these words, like this is a direct quote. Any entity that provides a marketplace for bringing together buyers and sellers of securities, regardless of the applied technology, must determine whether its activities meet the definition of an exchange under the federal securities laws. So again, it's back to that, they're not using the Howey Test here, but the whole idea of substance over form, like what are the economic realities of the transaction? If it's actually bringing buyers and sellers together, and as we saw in Ether Delta, like keeping a commission, then you're an exchange. You're selling, you have to register or become a FINRA registered alternative trading system. You can become a National Securities Exchange or an alternative trading system, and anyone facilitating the trades has to be a broker dealer, and that's who has to get registered with FINRA. So, my overall thoughts on this, for whatever it's worth, all throughout this, they keep stating the government supports innovation and the application of beneficial technologies in the American securities markets. My only, what I can decipher from that is they don't think ICOs are beneficial technology. And in a lot of cases of what we've seen them take action on, it looks like they might be right there, that the ones that have been, enforced against those, none of those looked like beneficial technologies. We have Munchie that was saying they were going to make an app that had to do with like your food. I don't know what it was supposed to do with the food. The ones today, like those projects looked really silly. Like what, air tokens, the Central one, they just made up that they were bank cards, but they had no link to the actual bank cards. The Tomahawk one for gold mining or something, all of these things are not really what one might define as beneficial technologies. So anyway, if the SEC doesn't consider it a beneficial technology, they're not going to support the innovation of it, I guess, is kind of the underlying message here, if you're reading between the lines. But they're clearly cracking down on ICOs and secondary trading of ICOs. And they've now created a website called FinHub that encourages inquiries. So, if you're launching a project, you can contact them and ask if what you're doing is okay. And one thing about that, like FinCEN has an anonymous way to contact them, so you can kind of lay out your plan and get an answer without disclosing who you are. And here, as soon as you tell the SEC, like, oh, here's my plan, I think I'm not a security because X, Y, and Z, and I'm this person, here's my email address, here's my address. Well, as soon as you do anything public, they're going to know that you're in, they're pretty clear on this. You have to register as a security. I doubt that they're going to issue any guidance saying, oh, your substance over form, your economic reality is not a security. Like that would just create a lot of confusion in what they've worked pretty hard to draw a firm line here. And then it's also come to light, since all these enforcement actions, that ICO market is like crawling with fraud, misleading statements, celebrity endorsements, pump and dumps, and just general exit scams. And maybe it's true that only accredited investors are capable of navigating that sea of confusion. I don't, that's not typically I'm an anti-regulation person at the core, but around the ICOs, it doesn't seem like a lot of positive came from them, from the technology. Although if you're an active trader, they're a gamble. That's all they are. And then it's silly to be like, oh, you have to be an accredited investor to gamble when you don't have to be an accredited investor to go to Vegas. So that's kind of, it just seems that part is a little bit funny. And so, maybe today's notice is going to make ICO issuers register and issue refunds. Like if they, sell all the stuff that they probably bought, like if you've taken $12 million through an ICO, how much of that do you have left after a year? You've probably purchased like houses, cars, invested in other crypto projects that lost money, or if you held it in Ethereum, that just evaporated too. So there is a website I saw that shows, like, it tries to keep track of the wallets of the ICO companies. So that's interesting to see. Not all of them have sold out completely, but yeah, that's one option. You do that path to registration that the SEC outlined. But a lot of other people might, the nature of people who've been typically attracted to this space are ones who are kind of anti-authority or anti-regulation, anti-government. And so they might just, buy passports on the black market and disappear out of America. That's what this could happen, is a big exit. And the other countries are not treating ICOs like this. They're embracing them, maybe to their detriment, maybe not. We don't know yet. But, it's a pretty distinct difference between someone like Estonia and someone like America. But look at America's securities market over the past 100 years. It's way better than any other place. So all the SEC is saying is, hey, we've got a good system going. It might not be perfect, but it certainly has been the best and it's worked for all of the big blue chip companies that issue stock. So it's not that hard to register, I guess, off the bat. If you're a new ICO starting this, it's just harder to raise money now than it was in 2017. And then the back reaching enforcement, it does seem kind of harsh, but like, what else can they do? They issued the Dow notice. They've been issuing notices and taking selective enforcement for well over a year now, and people are still just choosing to ignore them or thinking they're different in some way. It's like, oh, well, that project did this or this or this, and my project is a little bit different because we're decentralized. Or some people thought, oh, we're not taking in money, so we're not meeting the first prong of the Howey test. There's everyone thinks different things, and it's such a new area. I think all the different attorneys out there too think that, everyone interprets this stuff differently, and it's open for interpretation the way that it was looking. But now, after today and after the past couple months, you'd have to be pretty risky to be saying that there still exists some kind of, ICO haven of a utility token. That Howey test is pretty broad. So it'll be interesting to see how many ICOs still have the money to do the refund, or how that's all going to shake down. So yeah, it's kind of it's always a tug of war between like, what's better? Is the free market better? Just to allow people to gamble? It probably would have come to light anyway that these ICOs are not the investment opportunity that people thought they were in the fall of 2017 when everything was going up. So we'd probably, the market has kind of decided, maybe with or without the SEC, that money is not getting diverted to ICOs the same way it was earlier in the year. But the reality is, we don't live in some kind of libertarian utopia here. This is America, and American investors are going to be protected by the SEC, whether they like it or not. Yeah. So that's it. Thank you. Bye.